going to start putting the harnesses down to the terminals onto the main harness, and then when we've done all of that and we've sleeved the main harness, we'll pull it through the firewall. So this is now water temperature. Water temperature actually only requires two terminals. The red one is unnecessary because it's a resistance sender, not a voltage sender. So I cut that one away and just tuck it in the sleeve. Now I'm going to connect the blue wire to the water temperature wire, which happens to be the green wire on the wiring loom. Just get it untangled and out here. So we're going to solder those. We're going to put a bit of heat shrink on. Putting heat shrink just makes it a nice secure fitting. So we're going to now slide our heat shrink onto the cable. We'll strip back a little bit. We'll strip back a little bit on the sender side. It's really rudimentary. I'm going to twist them together, sort of cross over. Like so. And then we come in with a soldering iron, and we're going to solder that together. So if you're not familiar with soldering, you're actually not melting the solder per se, you're heating up the receiving surface, and as soon as it gets to temperature, you put a drop of solder on and it runs in to the joint. So that's all soldered closed, nice and secure. We will pull over the heat shrink over that joint. I use a small gas torch. You can use a heat gun. There's lots of ways to do it. You can use a hairdryer. I use a little gas torch and just heat up the joint, shrink the sleeving. There we're going to go. So we're going to do that for each of these senders. Then I'm going to come back and do all of the earths that are necessary, and then all of the battery positives. But we'll come back for that. I'll carry on with doing these first. Transmission oil temperature. So one of the things that is probably causes the most comebacks on the Madman installation is the earth. On a Madman, there is only one connection of ground or earth or negative, and that must be to the engine itself, somewhere on the head or the block, not the chassis, not the battery, not another piece of earth somewhere else. It must be on the motor. And you will, if you don't follow that directive, then you end up with errors on your system. So I've taken the engine cover off, and you obviously don't want to be undoing head bolts and tappet cover bolts. You're going to just make a leak. So oftentimes a good spot to put your earth is a bracket, one of these lifting brackets. They're at just the right spot for me. I want to come out here and attach there. That's a good solid earth right against the block, and that one is going to be where I connect my one earth. There's no other earth on the thing. You connect one earth on the Madman harness. I'm going to put the earth wire, and I'm going to put this terminal on it, and it's going to go under there, underneath into the block. So just make sure that the terminal suits the bolt. I'll just put the bolt back just temporarily. Put this terminal on what's going to be my earth wire. I've cut a little piece of black wire, but there's always enough scrap left over from your extra harness lengths. I've just got lots of wire in stock. So I use this one. I'm going to terminate it. and then I'm going to heat shrink just to keep it neat and also to prevent corrosion buildup at where you've crimped it. Okay. Now what I did do is I measured how far that earth terminal is from where my water temperature connection is, and it was about 6 inches further. So I'm going to run this earth wire in my same little water temperature sleeve and hide it away in that sleeve. I don't want to have unnecessary extra wires, so that's what I'm going to do. This is now my water temperature lead, and just past my water temperature lead is the position where I'm going to tie my earth. So I've run my little earth wire through into this lead. I could cut the earth at the probe here and solder it on, but I'm going to be soldering all the earths at one point just to make it easier. So I don't want to cut anything. The least cutting I can do, the better. So we're going to connect all of the earths now, and all of the positives where the senders need a positive supply. The water level sender is just going to be a push-on fitting. It comes with a tab in the hose connector kit that you put under the stainless steel screw. So we're just going to terminate the fitting, and what we have here is your water temperature sender plug, my earth, which is not too far from my water temperature sender, and my coolant level detector sender wire, and that's how, and it's all nice and neatly done in a single loom. Essentially, the earth is coming from the block. I'm using the water level sender as the water level sender's loom as a root, and I'm going to connect it to the earth of the main unit. So now I just have to strip these wires back. We'll slide on some heat shrink and solder them in place, and then we'll do a similar thing with the positive. Not too much that you burn the wires or melt the wires. Okay, then there's two positives that I have to connect here, and they're going to go onto the red wire. So these are going to receive power from a connection. So when I work inside of the car, I'm going to get a switch ignition signal which will power this red wire line and give power to the senders and to the Madman unit. And the function of that is it measures your charging voltage, or if the vehicle is not started, it'll measure static battery voltage, and it powers the Madman at the same time. Here it's just two wires connecting to the power supply, which is the boost pressure sender and the oil pressure sender, which are both voltage driven senders. 5 volts out, 12 volts in, 5 volts out, max 5 volts. It's good contact here as well. You don't want a weak positive signal. Heat shrink that closed. The last one I need to do is the brown wire. The pink wire I'm actually going to cut off a little bit short. I'm not going to be using it. That's one of the output signals. If you need to drive a relay, that would be one of your output signals. There's now the brown wire. Brown wire is the water level sensor. This ought to be the last soldered joint. Okay, it looks like a bit of a spider's web if you looking from afar, but once it once all these things go back into the sleeving, it all starts to make some kind of sense and get into some kind of order. And there you can see it. This is the orange and white. The orange and white goes to, is where your EGT probe connects to. I don't use the pin plugs simply because I have the tools to do it, but you can use the pin plugs. I find it's just easier for me to use terminals, but for the purpose of this exercise, we'll just use the pin plugs and work according to that. Let me just move the water adapter. I've put it in temporarily just so that I can get wiring loom lengths.
Hi, it's Brian from Madman Developments here. Our products are made in South Africa and available to everyone around the world. We have an online shop and warehouse in South Africa selling to the world, and a dedicated shop and warehouse in the USA for the Americas. Go to madmandevelopments.com for all the information you need, including shops and contact details for sales and technical assistance.